Welcome back to this evening edition. This is the Daily Debate. Turkey is in deep crisis after Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan reshuffled his government in the wake of the corruption scandal which has gripped Turkey. The scandal does not seem to be dying down, and Erdogan's response is not calming the situation but making it worse. Tonight we look at the effects of this crisis. Where is Turkey going, and how and when it all can end? Joining me tonight to look at the issue is Dror Zeevi, a professor of Ottoman and Turkish studies at Ben Gurion University of the Negev. Thank you very much for coming.
Hello.
And Dr. Galia Lindenstrauss, research fellow at the Institute of National Security Studies. Thank you both for coming. Thank you also for coming. So we just spoke with a Turkish journalist who said, well, Tayyip Erdogan is not going to disappear anytime soon. So people may go and protest in the streets, but he's going to be with us for a long, long time.
I'm not sure about that. Things are developing very, very fast in Turkey, and what seemed very stable yesterday seems pretty shaky today. I think Erdogan is still in charge, and he's doing his best to keep his government alive, but this government is falling apart very quickly, and I'm not sure it will last very long. So I'm not sure I agree with that description of the situation.
Dr. Lindenstrauss, do you think that what is happening right now in Turkey, is it an escalation, or is it something regular that will pass away and people will continue to live their lives?
No, this is not a regular situation. I think this is the greatest threat Erdogan has faced. I think it's a bit too early to know whether this will cause his downfall, but even if he gets out of it, he will be bruised.
He will be bruised?
Yes.
So what should we expect in the next few days?
Well, a lot of things. I don't know. First of all, I assume that the people who've begun this cycle of problems in Turkey have some things up their sleeves. So I think there will be more corruption charges probably brought against Erdogan's inner circle, his family, his sons, himself. There will be big demonstrations in all the major cities of Turkey. There will be desertions from the ruling party. So Erdogan is doing his best in the last few hours to keep things intact, to keep his government going, but it seems like the challenges are growing very, very fast, and I think we haven't seen the last of it. I think it'll get even deeper and more serious in the next few days.
How can he stay calm and actually do the steps that he does right now in Turkey, and not actually to do the reverse thing and try to calm everybody down and maybe come a hand or come one step towards the people?
He did one step to calm the situation, which was the reshuffling of the government. The fact that the four ministers that were the ones that were suspected are now out of the government is a clever move. There is some questioning whether the new ministers are the right choice, but this was one thing that he did right in calming the situation. But I agree with Dror, there are going to be protests, there are going to be pro-government protests, there are going to be anti-government protests. It's going to be very, very stormy in the next few days.
So should we expect an Arab Spring, a Turkish Spring?
Well, I don't know. I don't think the problems are definitely different in Turkey. But what we could expect is one of the two extremes. One is a measure of anarchy. What happened in the last few days is that, for instance, the police refuses to take orders from the prosecution, which means there is a breakup of the separation of powers. There is a great breakup of the state as a functioning body. So the police does its own thing, the prosecution does its own thing, the government refuses to collaborate. So this is a breakup that could lead to some kind of anarchy. And on the other hand, you have Erdogan trying to keep things together and breaking the remnants, what's left of Turkish democracy, breaking firing police chiefs, firing prosecutors, breaking the boundaries between the powers. So it could either lead to some kind of a more authoritarian regime on the one hand, and also some kind of anarchy on the other.
You just said what is left from the Turkish democracy. what is left from the Turkish democracy? Because if you ask Turkish in Turkey, they will tell you we're still a liberal country, we are still democratic, and we live in a democratic country.
I think the Turkish democracy faces a lot of problems, but corruption issues is not something that is unique to Turkey. It's not something that is unique to the developing world. It's something that happens also in democracies. The scale of the corruption is enormous. They're talking about $100 billion of bribes and corruption worth money. That's big, but the fact that there's corruption, that's not necessarily means that Turkey is not democratic. Although I agree with Dror that the way that he's handling the corruption problems is in some ways undemocratic.
Let's not forget that there is no separation. That there is maybe vague separation between the church and the state in Turkey. He is very Islamist. Turkey used to be more liberal and open-minded, and it's not happening. And the Turks are not very happy with this situation.
Well, not necessarily. Strangely enough, the Islamic Party's rule hasn't changed much in the sense of Turkey being a secular country. Turkey still has a clear separation of church and state. Marriage is still totally secular. You don't get married in some kind of a religious place. You just get married in the town hall. There is a lot of a clear separation between the state and the mosque, if you will, but it's being eroded very slowly. That is true. I'm not sure everybody's unhappy about this. A great section of Turkish population is pretty happy about the breakup of this very secular, very rigidly secular state. That's not the problem. The problem is not the creeping of religion into the state. The problem is, as I said before, I think, the breakup of the separation of power, his increasingly authoritarian rule, and his inability to compromise and to understand the intricacies of internal politics.
Where the scandal puts Turkey in, where's the status that Turkey is standing right now in Europe with this scandal?
Well, there was some improvement in Turkish-EU relations in the fact that there was an advancement towards a lifting of the need for visas for Turkish citizens that go to Europe. That was something that annoyed the Turks for a long time, and it's hopefully in 3 years the Turks will no longer need this. But the Europeans have also criticized the Turkish government's handling of the situation, and of course every criticism that comes from the outside is presented by Erdogan as one of the ways to undermine his authority. So this is a dangerous game.
What is the opposition requests from Erdogan?
Well, first of all, just to add to Galia's remark, there is also a serious crisis between Turkey and the United States, because Erdogan has somehow decided that the United States is behind this also, and Israel, by the way. So now there's a serious crisis between the two countries. That's also a problem that's emerging. As for the opposition, I think they're demanding Erdogan's resignation. That's their main request. That's their main demand. I don't think Erdogan will want to comply, of course. He will do anything to save himself, to save his government, and probably, I dare say, to save himself from exposure of corruption very close to himself. So that's the issue right now in Turkey.
So what are the people on the streets are going to demand from him except his resignation?
Again, in the short term, there are going to be protests. They're not going to be. I don't think they're going to be huge like we saw in Gezi Park. I think they're going to be smaller in scale, but they're going to make the atmosphere even more tense. It depends how it develops. If it's going to be allegation, I mean, there are already allegations and there are already pictures of the arrest warrant that Erdogan's son got in Twitter and in Facebook. So if these will get more publicity, he'll get more into trouble, and then the public is tired of corruption. It was tired in the past. That's one of the reasons why the Justice and Development Party rose to power. And so this is a dangerous situation for Erdogan.
Who can replace him in a case that he will resign?
Well, the situation is interesting. There is no serious candidate in the opposition. I mean, the opposition doesn't present right now somebody who could seriously replace Erdogan. The alternative can come from within the ranks of the ruling party, of AKP. And everybody seems to think it's Gül, the president of Turkey, who has on the whole stayed silent on the issues, and wherever he expressed himself, expressed himself very carefully and in a very mild manner, and sort of as a president, as a sovereign in a way. So people think he might be the guy, he might be the person who would come and replace Erdogan if things come to that point. So that's the only person that. Sorry.
Does he have enough support?
He doesn't have Erdogan's charisma, for one thing. But I think he's gained the respect of many Turkish citizens because he fulfilled his role as president in a very elegant manner, very careful manner, and I think he's come up. When he's been called up to the plate, he's always presented Turkey in a good light in the world, and I think to Turkey's population as well. So he's gaining a lot of popularity right now. Although I don't know what happens if it comes to the ballot, I'm not sure he will be the one they choose.
From Erdogan's allies, who's going to lose if he will step down, if he will resign?
Well, I mean, it's a one-man show, the Justice and Development Party. I mean, I agree with Dror that the only person that can replace him is perhaps the president. I agree with Dror. He's popular. He really was a good president. But in terms of the party will fall, at least will fall dramatically in the polls.
And outside of Turkey, who are the allies who don't want to see Erdogan's falling?
He hasn't got many left. That's the situation. You know, they had this zero problem policy. They came up with, Davutoglu, the foreign minister, came up with a few years ago. But since then, Turkey has lost almost every ally it had in the region. And, you know, there are some in the world, you might say, that China has good relations with Turkey. But it's all very remote and not very serious as far as Turkey is concerned. I don't think he has many people. Certainly not in the Middle East, by the way. He has broken up every relationship with countries in the Middle East, as far as I know. There are sort of beginnings in Iraq and some relations with Iran, but nothing very impressive. So I don't see many people weeping for Erdogan's departure.
I think that Israel won't be weeping also, but if we're looking at the current Israel-Turkish situation, where is it going, if it's going anywhere?
Well, interestingly, in the last few weeks, there's talk about a compromise between Israel and Turkey on the compensation for the people killed in the Mavi Marmara event. And it seems as though at least the Foreign Office in Turkey was interested in mending fences with Israel and trying to put it on a better footing, perhaps because there's not many allies left. So we see Davutoglu, the foreign minister, trying to mend fences with Armenia, with Israel, with Cyprus, with Greece to some extent. But at the same time, Erdogan, when this new crisis erupted, said, "Oh, Israel must be behind it," or at least hinted that this is the case. So I don't know where it's going. It's a very strange situation in that respect.
No future for Israel and Turkey?
No, there's future for Israel and Turkey. Israel and Turkey need each other in the region. They're too important to ignore each other. So I agree with Dror. I mean, the negotiations, it seemed that negotiations between Israel and Turkey were progressing, but the current atmosphere is not very productive for normalization between Turkey and Israel.
Galia Lindenstrauss, thank you very much for this, and Wolzevi, thank you very much for this. And thank you, our viewers. We're going out for a 10 minutes break, and then we will be back for the I-24 News One-on-One. Don't go anywhere.